And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Friday to you. Hope you've had an awesome week and hope we can continue that with a great video. In this one, I am going over my buy sells. I have 6 of them for you guys, 3 in each category. These are players I am looking to either move away from while they are at their highest peak or try to get on my roster for the stretch run because I believe they have a lot left in the tank. A big shout out to my current subscribers. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. It means so very much to me. You are the reason that we are oh so close to getting our goal of my first 500 subscribers. If you have not done that yet, come on along and join us on the journey. With that done, how about we hop into week 9's buy sell. Per usual, I am going to start with my buys, and the first dude I am looking to acquire is Kareem Hunt. I think it is safe to say that so far this year, Hunt has been a letdown for owners who drafted him. I know that he's the current running back 23, and he has most likely outplayed his draft cost. But he has done that by just staying healthy and putting up consistent games that stuff the stat sheet only to the extent that they are not killing your fantasy team. He has just 1 finish inside of the top 20 all year. That was way back in week number 1, and he's fallen outside of the top 30 in 4 of his last 6 games. Now call me crazy, but that is not the actual RB2 that you want to put in your lineups every single week. Another disappointment occurred in the past week as the trade deadline passed and Hunt remained in Cleveland. Owners that were maybe holding out hope that he'd be moved to a situation that was going to showcase his skills more often are now left waiting and hoping for a Nick Chubb injury, which of course we never want to have happen. So if that disappointed manager exists in your league, jump on the opportunity to buy Hunt. I am not after what we have seen from him so far, but I am buying him because I am optimistic of things to come. Deshaun Watson's return is going to have ripple effects. Now, exactly what those are anyone's guess, but I would love a piece in this offense in order to be able to wait and find out. Hunt is a dynamic playmaker with the ball in his hands, and I can picture Watson evading the rush and then finding Hunt in space where we know he does as much damage as anybody. He's also one of the best cuffs in the league, so that is a fallback if all else fails. Should Chubb go down, Hunt immediately becomes a weekly top 15 play that can win you your league, and you can give me all of those types of players at this time of year. Now, I am probably not going to pull the trigger on Hunt if I am fighting for my life for a playoff spot. But if I am firmly planted in the playoff picture and I am looking for a piece that can put my team over the top, I am making a move for Kareem. I would gladly move a declining asset like David Montgomery at running back 31 or CEH for him, obviously. Now, do not laugh because he is still running back 20 right now. Also, if we're looking for other options, Raheem Mostert has some recent success. He's RB26. And Antonio Gibson has been able to turn it around a little bit. He is running back 20. I would swap either of those guys for him as well to have a chance to hit big down the stretch with Hunt. The next buy that I have is Khalil Herbert. Guess we're going with the RB2 approach in this one. Meet the real running back 1 in Chicago, ladies and gentlemen. While it has flown under the radar thus far, I believe that a takeover is coming. The signs have been clear for now 2 straight weeks, but it's very likely that Herbert's current owner has not caught on yet because of all the touches that David Montgomery continues to garner. So your job is to make a move now before everyone else knows what you do. Naysayers may point to Monty's passing game work as a reason to stray from Herbert, and while Khalil is basically a 0 factor in the passing game, Montgomery has not been all that and a bag of chips himself either. He has just 4 targets, 35 receiving yards over the last 3 games, and that's more or less a product of being a running back in a system led by Justin Fields. The point is, those numbers do not move the needle for Monty, but what does in Chicago is rushing yards, because that is what the Bears truly want to do. So let's take a look at those. So far this season, Herbert has racked up 564 yards on the ground, while Monty has just 361. Now, I know part of that was that Monty missed some time, But all of that was basically a game and a half, and Monty still has more carries than Herbert on the season, and he has 200 yards less to show for it. Herbert is averaging an otherworldly 6.2 yards per carry right now. Monty can't even crack that 4 yards per carry barrier. It is clear who the more efficient and explosive option is, and sooner or later the Bears are going to see it too. The final straw for me here is the touchdowns and the opportunities to score them. While Montgomery has struggled and has just 2 scores on the season, Herbert has already racked up 5, and he's also scored in back-to-back games. If I am leaning one way or the other here, I am taking the guy that is crossing the goal line and producing where the team wants him to. To be clear, I am not buying Herbert at his current ranking. If the owner in your league wants a top 20 running back for him, you are walking away without question. Now, to sway them, you can point out that Montgomery is back, and the production that Herbert experienced while he was out is not coming back. If that works and you can move a flex piece for him, which, let's be honest, he's the running back 2 in a bad Chicago offense, right? So why not? So if that is the case, I am going all in to acquire him. I'd be looking to move a guy like Damian Harris at running back 35. Either Jets back would be a great option. James Robinson is RB29, Michael Carter is RB30. Any one of those guys I would be willing to give up to get Herbert. The last buy that I have in week 9 is Amon-Ra St. Brown. What started out as a beautiful sight quickly turned into a house of horrors for St. Brown owners. And the nightmare has now continued for 6 straight weeks. Since the start of week 3, St. Brown has combined for 164 yards and he's failed to produce a touchdown. When we consider that in his first 2 weeks, he had 3 scores and 180 yards, the split here is about as bad as it gets. We do know that the injuries to St. Brown had a lot to do with his drop-off, but that may not matter to a manager who had St. Brown in his lineup all season long and then got killed twice in the matter of 3 weeks with early exits against both the Patriots and Dallas, and those are sandwiched outside of a bye. There is a good chance that the current owner is as about ready as they will ever be to get rid of him. So take advantage while you still can. With TJ Hawkinson out of Detroit, Jameson Williams still without a real timetable for return, and DeAndre Swift's own inabilities to stay healthy, there are a ton of opportunities just waiting to be spoken for in this Lions offense. Now, more often than not, those targets are going to St. Brown, who had 24 in his first 2 weeks before dropping off the face of the earth. Detroit's defense is an absolute laughingstock, and that means that the offense is going to have to produce big numbers to stay in games. We have already seen shootouts in their matchups that show us that that can continue to happen. We've also already seen that St. Brown is capable of top 10 numbers at the position over the course of the season, and it is entirely possible that he finishes this season as a top 12 wideout the rest of the way. Now, luckily for you, you do not have to pay close to that price to acquire him. I would love to move a recent rising player like Brandon Aiyuk, who we will cover in just a minute, or Terry McLaurin, who I just had as a sell, in order to steal Amon-Ra away from his current owner. Before we get into my sells, this is a great time to remind you, if you are enjoying the content, please crush that like button for me. It helps me out a ton, gets the video out to those who maybe have not seen it yet, so we can continue to grow. Now let's hop into these sells. I'm starting with Michael Pittman. I love me some Michael Pittman. I'm going to start there, but at this point, it is pretty clear that the season has not gone as planned for him. We thought that the elite running capabilities of Jonathan Taylor would make life easier on him, and as defenses had to account for that home run in the backfield on any given play, that he would capitalize on it. Now that certainly has not materialized. We also thought that Matt Ryan, while clearly removed from his prime, would have enough left in the tank to take a solid offensive line with multiple studs as playmakers and get the most of them. But now we're looking, and Ryan's NFL career is probably in jeopardy courtesy of some dude that most of us never even heard of. We thought he'd be the only show in town in the passing game, commanding a ridiculous number of targets, and to an extent, that has been true. However, rookie Alec Pierce has been more than involved and has come on as of recently, and even Paris Campbell is now getting into the action. So needless to say, a lot has gone sideways, and sometimes all the talent in the world cannot bail you out of a terrible situation. I believe that is the case for Pittman. Here is a hot take in case you missed my video on Tuesday. Check it out, still got good content by the way. Sam Ehlinger, the 6th round pick out of Texas last year for the Colts, is not it. I know it, you know it, and the Colts know it too. The only reason that he is even starting is because Indy figured that at worst, maybe he would turn it over in less backbreaking style than Ryan has all season. The other thing that move does, however, is severely cap the ceiling that we were hoping Pittman could reach in 2022. Even before switching quarterbacks, Pittman was struggling to produce consistently. Thus far, he's had 2 finishes inside the top 10, and the rest all have fallen outside of the top 35. He hasn't had a receiving touchdown since back in week number 1, and even with 9 targets in each of the last 2 games, he's compiled just 108 total yards. Now, I do not think that changes with Ehlinger getting more comfortable. More than likely, what is going to happen is that as Taylor gets healthier, the Colts are going to lean on him more, play good defense, and try to win games the old school way. Indy is not going to be going to the air often unless they don't have a choice, and even then, they might take the Atlanta approach, and they would rather lose than air it out to try to come back. Clearly, none of this bodes well for Michael Pittman's prospects for the rest of the season, and if I am an owner, I am trying to get out of it now while his current wide receiver 22 price tag looks respectable. He's got the Eagles and the Patriots in 2 out of the next 3, so that number could nosedive quickly. We know his name has value. He was as big of a riser as anyone up until your fantasy draft. So maybe you find a buyer that's thinking that they are buying low on an underperforming wide receiver 1. If I can get someone like Chris Olave at wide receiver 19 or DK Metcalf at wide receiver 25, I am pulling the trigger. The next sell that I have is Romeo Doubs, and if you're seeing a trend over my last couple of videos in my buy sells, good on you. Yes, I am selling the Packers like it is running out of style. The offense here is broken and nobody is coming to save it. Enter Doubs, my latest get out while there's still any value left sell. And the reasoning here is pretty simple. The Packers are understanding what they are, and that is no good for Romeo's rest of season outlook. Green Bay was always supposed to be a run-first team. Why wouldn't they be? They have an above-average offensive line and a top 3 1-2 combo at running back. Now, for whatever reason, whether that's poor play calling, a lack of self-scouting, or more likely Aaron Rodgers' ego, the Packers never fully committed to the ground game and they paid for it big time. Last week, it looks like they finally figured it out, handing Aaron Jones a massive workload of 20 carries for the first time all season. And even though the recipe did not result in a win, Green Bay looked better than they have all season, and they did it against the best team in football in Buffalo. Light bulb moment. The Pack will adjust, and that means less work in a passing game that never was good to begin with. Back to Doubs, whose role will diminish significantly. Not only is Green Bay gonna throw it less, but they're gonna have more options as Allen Lazard and Christian Watson get healthier. It'll be a new Packer every single week, leading the team in both targets and yardage, much like it's been for most of this season, and you're never gonna know who it's going to be, and I want nothing to do with that. So far this year, Romeo has 1 finish in the top 12 and 5 finishes outside of the top 50. Yes, 5-0. So that means if he is not scoring a touchdown, he is absolutely killing you. The value for Doubs is not great as the current wide receiver 42, but after his latest performance, you can probably get another decent flex piece in return. Take it. If I am able to pull someone like Brandon Cooks at wide receiver 45, Drake London at wide receiver 38, or even a pissed off Deontay Johnson owner at wide receiver 40, I am running with it. My last sell is Brandon Aiyuk, and talk about selling high, there is no better player to do so with right now than Aiyuk. The current wide receiver 13 has dominated over his last 3 games, recording 80 yards or more in each one of them, while scoring 3 times. Those performances have elevated him to his peak, and we know that is exactly when you pull the trigger on a move. There are plenty of reasons that point to why his current pace is not sustainable. Prior to week 6, Aiyuk had not finished inside of the top 30 even once all season. He had 4 finishes outside of the top 40 in 5 tries while failing to break 65 yards, so not exactly starting material. Next up is the addition of CMC, who was not there for Aiyuk's first explosion, and he only played sparingly in the second. McCaffrey commanded a king's ransom, and the 49ers are going to get their money's worth. We already saw the many ways that he is going to be involved as he threw, rushed for, and caught a touchdown pass all last week. No big deal, just the first guy to do that in 15 years. He will shrink what has already been a fluctuating target share from Aiyuk. Finally, lest we forget, the Niners still have George Kittle to feed the ball to. Deebo Samuel, who was out for the 3rd game in Aiyuk's comeback tour, is going to get his as well. This is going to be an explosive offense, but there are just too many mouths to feed, and Aiyuk is eating 4th. There is no way that you're able to sell Aiyuk off at his current price as a high-end wide receiver 2, but it is entirely possible that you can get an underperforming stud like Chris Godwin or one that has risen from the ashes like DJ Moore in exchange. Take what you can while you can before Aiyuk's season ends and you're left with a hopeful flex with a non-existent floor. And that is everything for the buy sell today. Hope you guys enjoyed the content. Hope this information was valuable to you and that you can use it to make a couple big trades as we swing for the fences and go after those championships. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed the content. Make sure you ask me all the questions you got. I love to answer them. The engagement is one of the biggest reasons I do this. If you have not done it yet, what are we doing here? Please consider subscribing to the channel. Every sub helps on my road to my first 500. This is Relentless Press. I'm your host, Abraham Opatz, and I will see you next time.